as we say, Houston Texans coming off back-to-back division championships, wild card wins, at home, dominant performances over Cleveland 2 years ago, the Chargers last year, and then road losses in the divisional round to the Ravens and then the Chiefs. Chiefs was a close game, but some penalties and some bad breaks in the second half. Texans lose, Chiefs advance, and they go to the Super Bowl again in the AFC. But look, I mean, some people very high on the Texans. I'm pretty high on them in this year. I think they're a little bit underappreciated at under 9.5 wins. I think they can exceed that. I think they can get to 11 or 12 wins personally, but it's going to depend on a couple of factors. Let's hear from Dan Orlovsky. He's pretty high. He was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and he's one of those national pundits that very high on Houston in 2025.
I think Houston's going to be awesome this year. I think Houston has like a little bit of a massive bounce back year. Their defense is absolutely loaded, and there's a little bit of a mix and match with their offensive line. They missed or moved on like 3 or 4 pieces. New offensive coordinator. I think they're going to be awesome this year. Everyone stupidly talked about this regression for CJ Stroud last year. His numbers weren't all that different than they were his rookie year. More interceptions, no doubt, but offensive line was bottom 5 in the NFL. He's lost his number 1, number 2, number 3 wide receiver. So I think that football.
All right, so Dan Orlovsky likes the Texans this year, and he just gave you the reasons why. And yes, the defense, Jack, will be one of the elite units in all of football. Anchored by a tremendous pass rush. Will Anderson's now into year 3. The veteran Daniil Hunter was as advertised. Derek Stingley and the Kamari Lassiter and company in the secondary, one of the better secondaries and stingiest in all of the NFL. Stingley's one of the best. They're going to be able to stop people. And D'Amico Ryans, that's another year better in my opinion. But the massive question, as you heard Orlovsky say, remains on the offensive side of the ball, mostly with an offensive line that last year ranked 22nd out of 32 teams in pass block win rate. And how about this, Jack? I mean, everybody talk about they couldn't protect CJ Stroud, but they also couldn't push for the run. They ranked 31st out of 32 in run block win rate, which is why they were in 3rd and long so often. Predictable play calling, and that's Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, and D'Amico Ryan's good buddy, blown out. The team's offensive line coach was fired, and after a league-wide search, D'Amico Ryan's hires Nick Caley, who had been the passing game coordinator with Sean McVay with the Rams the last 4 seasons. Before that, Caley was working with Tom Brady and company in New England, and so far, here's why D'Amico Ryan's have been pleased with the hire he made. Really likes Nick Caley so far.
What excites me most about Caley's offense is that it's evolving and it's being tailored toward the Houston Texans and the guys that we have on our roster. So what excites me the most is not just copy and paste from other places that he's been, and he's been very successful at other places, but he's been very, very thorough with the installation process of where do we want to put our guys, what position, what's the best spot for our guys to be in.
All right, so you got to hear. That's why we fired Bobby Slowick, even though he was my friend, because he tried to rip and replicate. He brought the San Francisco offense and just tried to install it, despite whatever the personnel is that Houston had. Well, that's probably a bad idea, and it didn't go well. Year 1, but with the league not knowing them very well, it went fine. But last year it regressed, as we talked about with the offensive line most specifically, and very predictable play calling. And as I mentioned, Nick Caley was part of Super Bowl winning teams in New England before joining the Rams and helping Matt Stafford and that group win a Super Bowl as well. And one of the things he's done with CJ Stroud this offseason is have him watching tape of Tom Brady. Tom Brady running and controlling the New England offense. And he also gives him more ownership of the offense. Here's CJ Stroud on what he's excited about so far with his new offensive coordinator, who's giving him a bit more reins of this offense.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of a, quarterback's offense where, you're IDing, you're calling the shots, you're switching protections if you need, and it's really like just me in the center. So that's J-Pat or Juice. Got to have good communication with those guys and, relay to everybody else what's going on. So, Nick is doing a great job teaching us stats, so is Jerry and Gerard. So, it's a lot more ownership.
And, some of the things you hear, if you're like, Jack, you're a Texans fan. I watch the Texans each week. Do you realize Bobby Slowick did not give him control at the line of scrimmage? He couldn't change plays. for the most. I mean, he couldn't change plays, which is, what are we doing? This is amateurish. And listen to Kevin Clark on ESPN saying the same thing. I'm glad to hear some national pundits saying what we watched, because I watched every play last year. It was hard to watch, and you knew there was coaching here. The offensive line was undercoached. The play calling was predictable. You're playing in the NFL, man. You can't just go out there and not give your quarterback an ability to change the play and get you into a better play. Listen to Kevin Clark, who's an analyst on ESPN.
Kevin?
It's CJ Stroud, and here's the reason. CJ Stroud is the only one of these guys, putting aside how I feel about Cam Moore, but that's just a Miami thing for me. But when I look at CJ Stroud, he's the only one who can get into the upper echelon of AFC quarterbacks with an unbelievable year. What does that mean? We know what that means. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. If CJ Stroud can build on what he had as a rookie, not the second season, a rookie, he can get on that trajectory eventually, even this year. He was the most pressured guy on the planet last year on throws over 15 yards. That's why his deep ball regressed. The protection schemes for the offensive coordinator were amateurish. The offensive line was amateurish. If you take a step forward, and they have some new guys across the offensive line, you can see a leap here that can get him on that plane, and that is special.
All right. Amateurish. That's exactly what I would call it, having watched it last year. It was JV. It was JV stuff. And it wasn't sure, there were some talent issues, and the O-line underachieved, and he got rid of 3/5 of the offensive line, including Laramie Tunsil. But that was bad. That was a bad coaching, bad play calling, bad play design, game planning. And, I guess some could criticize D'Amico Ryans for not pulling the plug on Bobby Slowick during the season last year. They still won the division. They still won a playoff game, but not nearly good enough to compete with, as you heard Kevin Clark say, the upper echelon of the AFC.
No, and all things considered, of course the interceptions went up for CJ, but he's running for his life back there for 80% of the season. And then I went through it when you were out. Just go back through the box score of that AFC divisional game against Kansas City and look at some of the names a guy CJ Stroud's throwing the ball to.
Yeah, Tank Dell got hurt. Nico Collins got hurt. And they've got to stay healthy, and that's part of this because again, when you look at the personnel on paper, you're happy that you have Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb as your primary running backs, plus the rookie fourth-round pick out of USC. You got 3 good backs. You've got now Nico Collins, who, as you guys said yesterday, graded out #1 receiver at Pro Football Focus last year when healthy. They went and got Christian Kirk.
Yeah, the first, 6 weeks of the season for Nico Collins, he was leading the league in receiving.
Right.
He was tremendous.
Christian Kirk's a veteran receiver out of A&M, and he's in a good spot. And then they draft Jaden Higgins, as we mentioned, and then in the 3rd round, his teammate from Iowa State, Jalen Knoll. Mm-hmm. They really like their weapons. It's malpractice if you don't give C.J. Stroud a good offensive line. But listen to C.J. Stroud talking about Nick Caley having him watch Tom Brady tape as he tries to build this offense and build around himself. But here's what he's learning watching the best to ever do it.
Clips are always great to watch. Somebody do it, and at such a high level. Just he's not like physically, imposing his will, but he just mentally, whooping guys, playing and play out. So that's something that I definitely, want to get to that. But like you said, they started back in 2000, 2001, 2003. So it's been a long time. It's been the same offense. So this is my first year. It's not going to be what I watch on film yet, but I am sure that one day it will. And I haven't talked to him, but I'm sure if he did, he would have some advice. But.
All right, he's watching Tom Brady. One other from Nick Caserio on the offensive line. They did draft Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota in the 2nd round. He's already running with the ones at right tackle. Titus Howard, Cam Robinson, veterans are ready to anchor. And here's the mindset that Nick Caserio is looking for up front with all the weapons.
Yeah, we have a number of players here with varying levels of experience. We've talked about that. So training camp will really be a good opportunity for us to evaluate. Be a lot of competition. Games are won and lost on the fronts. So, you look across the league. So, and you build your mental and physical toughness, your physical play in training camp. So, once the pads come on, we'll have a better idea of what that looks like, what that entails. But it's been a good group to work with. They've had a good attitude. They work hard. They're coachable, varying levels of experience. Cole's done a great job with that group. So, we'll put the 5 best out there. And like I said, we'll have 8 at the game each week. How many we carry on the roster, we'll always do what we think is best for the team.
And D'Amico Ryans, who has the moniker and mentality on defense, is swarm, right? That's what they are. He's trying to get that from his offense and his offensive line, and that's why some of those lackadaisical offensive linemen, even Laramie Tunsil, who's a really talented player, but doesn't play with a lot of fire. He gets a lot of penalties, jumping off sides. They need more fire from that offensive line, firing off, and as you just heard Caserio say, setting the tone offensively. And if they do, that's how Joe Mixon runs the ball. That's how Nick Chubb runs the ball. That's how D'Amico Ryan wants to play. They want to be a physical team. They are on defense. I still think they're clearly the most talented roster in that division, which is not a good division.
Absolutely.
That's not close, even with some move. Tennessee drafts Cam Ward. Travis Hunter's now in Jacksonville. But Indianapolis is going to have Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. I mean, Houston is far and away the most talented roster, 1-53 in that division. They should walk away with the division. Question is, as we've talked about, can they now compete with the upper echelon of the AFC? And that's Buffalo, that's Kansas City, that's Baltimore. If the offensive line can come together, and that's a massive if, I think they can. But that's why we'll tune in and watch.
Yeah, and those two, if Nick Chubb is anything, that is absolute found money.
10 carries a game.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard, because you don't want Joe Mixon carrying it 30 times. But again, you just heard the numbers from last year. 31st out of 32 in run block win rate, and Joe Mixon still ran for 1,000 yards.
That's the thing is, with Houston and this offensive line, is it realistically, there's not a lot of ways it could be worse.
Correct.
Conceivably, it's like, you are setting records. You are breaking David Carr's own record if it's worse.
And if you're 31st in run block win rate and 20-something in pass block, if you get to 15, 12, you're going to be much better. And CJ Stroud can kind of carry the mail with these weapons, and your defense is not going to allow a lot of points. I mean, this was a team that if they get into the 20s, they typically win the football game.
Yeah.
That's how good the defense is. So excited to watch them. A lot of optimism in Houston, but there also can be the frustration, as you saw last year. Can they take that step forward in the AFC? We'll find out. But over-under win a total of 9.5. What say you? I would go over. I think they get at least a double digits again. I think it's a 12-win, 11 or 12-win football team. But I'm just more optimistic about the offensive line and what Nick Caley is going to bring play-calling-wise. Because listen to D'Amico Ryan. He's going to tailor the offense to the players. Unlike Bobby Sloak, who came from San Francisco and with D'Amico Ryans and just said, okay, we're going to run the San Francisco offense. They're just going to set it. Well, that's a bad idea. And then when it wasn't working, he didn't change it. That's frustrating. I hope it's better. Maybe that's optimism of a fan, but at the same time, I think to win 10 games, win the division, and win a playoff game with what they were doing last year offensively, tells you there's plenty of good players there. They have to just bring it together. If they do, the defense can carry them a long, long way.